Welcome, welcome, everyone. Welcome to Bridges Live presents You Be the Judge. I'm Dr. Paul Dyer, and you also have my other co-host, Marylin Pierre, who's running for Circuit Court Judge of Montgomery County in Maryland. We also have our other esteemed colleague, Judge Claudia Barber. I do have to excuse my voice because I am hitting a weather front in my own body. So excuse me, my voice sounds just a little bit off. We'll figure that out sooner or later, but it's not going to stop me from doing this wonderful show called You Be the Judge. We're here to talk about information, understanding, and action. We bring our candidates on, we bring our friends on, we talk about legal issues around the world, we talk about local issues, we talk about personal issues, but everything has a judgment. And everything has a perception. And we would like to open that air and dialogue so we can also have what you call open perceptions and open emotional attachments. Thank you, everyone, for joining You Be the Judge every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My lovely co-host, Marylin Pierre, how are you doing this week?
Oh, I am fine. And I have to say, I see that smile on your face, and that is just wrong. That is just wrong. Because for those of you who don't know, we have a co-host, Judge Claudia Barber. And when she's here, Dr. Dyer says, and my lovely co-host, Marylin Pierre and Judge Claudia Barber, yay. And when she's not here, he just says Marylin Pierre. So right. I have been pointing that out to him that, hey, not that I'm stuck on my looks or anything, but I have noticed his lack of comments.
Yeah.
And I even remarked that we never say, well, I think once we said in our, handsome co-host, Dr. Paul Dyer. So a handsome co-host, Dr. Paul Dyer. So I am paying attention.
See?
It's lovely to be back here Wednesday night. We have a standing date to do that. And I hope you feel better soon. We will work with your throat, and we'll try not to make you talk any more than you need to so you can rest your voice.
No, the fight goes on. Here's the thing. We are now heading towards, and as most people are going to know, that we have a candidate that's running for sheriff in Montgomery County. He's coming on. His name is Mr. Robert Bass. But before that, we like to talk about things that sometimes is emotional. And most of the time it's emotional. And we have grievances. We have issues. And you guys, most of you people that's on the show, that comes on, that watches every week, are legal minds, right? I'm just a smart mind, but we have some great legal minds here too. And what I find that's so pertinent is that how we feel about something doesn't make it right, and it doesn't make it the law. But how we do things can interrupt and disrupt the law. And that sometimes we have to separate ourselves from those things.
Oh, yes, that's definitely true. And we also have to give ourselves some leeway because we're not perfect beings. We're just here trying to do the best that we can and trying to learn from each other and trying to learn from the world around us. So sometimes we might say something that we don't necessarily mean to say, and sometimes we just need to ask the question, and there's not a more elegant way of asking the question than to point out certain things. I think we're just here trying to do the best that we can, and we need to forgive and give some space to one another.
So, Marylin, you're going to introduce our guest, Mr. Robert Bass, for us, please. Do you have his file?
I did not bother getting his file because I have seen him in several places, and he does a very good job of introducing himself. So I did not want, that pressure of introducing Mr. Robert Bass, who is a candidate for sheriff in Montgomery County, Maryland.
I have to tell you, Mr. Bass, I did see one of your it was obviously it was a virtual that you were on with the other candidate, the one that is sheriff, that you had a conversation with the Democratic Party.
No. There's no, the other candidate is not a sheriff. He is a deputy sheriff.
He's a deputy sheriff, okay.
He's the chief, correct. He's the chief. He's not a sheriff yet.
Yeah.
Okay, but you guys had a dialogue on another platform.
Correct.
And your lighting was horrible.
Yes.
Today, your lighting's beautiful.
Yes, I corrected the error.
See, the willingness to learn. You're already good.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate that, doctor.
So please tell us about yourself and we get into it because I personally have some hard-hitting questions for you. So put on your baseball hat.
Yeah. I would normally wear one because I'm going bald, but that's okay.
I am bald.
Yeah. Well, like Marylin said, my name is Robert Bass. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, by 9 strong women, my mom, my grandma, and my aunts. I have a beautiful family. I have a beautiful wife who's Colombian and 3 sons, 25, 21, and 7. We live in Maryland. I went to University of Miami. Ooh, they're going to hate me for that. I'm a Hurricane. So I got a criminal justice degree there. I also played football there and won a national championship at the U. After leaving University of Miami, I was fortunate enough to play in the NFL for a couple of years with the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. And then after leaving the NFL, I worked in the NFL for the Miami Dolphins as a director of player development, where we showed young incoming rookies basic life skills on check writing, balancing a book, what is a mortgage, and helping with life and stress skills once you get into the NFL. After there, then I became a sheriff deputy, which brings us to where I am today. I started a security company 7 years ago while I was a sheriff deputy. And then that's where leads us to right here today. I'm running for sheriff because it's time, as you said in your introduction, this is a place for action. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting around the table talking with my friends and talking with family, and we do a lot of talking about what we should, could, or need to do. And I was like, I'm tired of the talk. The time is right. I'm going to act. And part of my platform is acting, which is bringing accountability, getting the community engaged, and having transparency within the sheriff's office, because a lot of things aren't going the right way. The morale is low, and they need new leadership and bring new vision into today's society, because there's a crisis going on in policing, and we need people to come in that's just not part of the old standard of what used to be, because it was. You need to bring in vision, new way of thinking, new technology, different things that will move policing forward. And I think a big piece of my platform is the community engagement, where we will want to create a cadet program where we want to show that the students, young people, and people across the county, that people in uniform are not warriors. They can be seen as mentors and protectors. We want to hire from within the community. I want my department will hire from within the community, because when you engage people that you know and that you know about, you tend to have empathy depending on their situation. So you won't come and just want to be ready to lock someone up. You will sit there and be like, okay, I know Johnny. I know Johnny's mom. Let me talk to her. Let me talk to him and get him out of that situation. So that's why I'm running for sheriff. And I thank you for the platform for me introducing myself. I wish my sons were here. Well, one of my sons is downstairs playing Xbox, and I told him to be quiet because he starts jumping when he beats the NBA team there. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
A couple of things. I am not going to hold it against you that you're from Brooklyn, because I'm a Bronx kid. So we can either roll up under the 56 bridge ourselves. Hey, right?
That's right. Hey, look, I used to hang out in Harlem a lot because my cousin lived on 147th and Lenox.
See,
so we used to walk over the bridge by Yankee Stadium to go catch the train. Yeah, so we together. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I grew up in Queens, so I understand. And I was not allowed to go to the Bronx much because. Well, to the Bronx or even Upper Manhattan much, because it was a different time back then.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right.
David looks like he wants to say something. David, do you want to say something?
No, ma'am. I was just giving a thumbs up, but I apologize for being late. I'm sorry I missed Sheriff Bass's presentation, but I heard the tail end of it, and I just want to wish you luck. I'm David Grogan, running for sheriff here in Prince George's County.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Much luck to you.
We have our other co-host that just joined us, Judge Claudia Barber. Welcome. We miss you on the intro. How you been, dear?
Doing well, thank you. Always a joy.
You forgot to say beautiful. I'm sorry. Isn't that what you said? You didn't say beautiful.
That's true. You forgot to say beautiful.
I love
Welcome, everyone. Now, the sheriff's race also in Anne Arundel County. I met at a West County Democratic Club event, a Black male that's running for sheriff in Anne Arundel County. I was impressed with the caliber of choices that we have and that we should keep our eye on, because that is encouraging news for the betterment of the community to encourage people of all races to consider running for office and actually run for office. Now, it takes money to run a campaign. So the best support you can give to any candidate of your choice is to support them financially. Write a check and make sure you back that person up with financial support because it's needed.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for that. That is 100% accurate. It's tough to ask people for money that you don't know. And it's tough, during these times that people are losing their jobs, with the economy and where it is, or making a choice not to work. They have to prioritize. But thank you for saying that. But people who want to donate to bassforsheriff.com, we go to our page. There's a donate button on there. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for asking.
We'll talk more offline because I have a feeling our paths have crossed several times. I do a lot of analysis for the NFL. I also talked to the NFL alumni. I was probably at your combine when you did it, and I was critiquing you in all your activities. So I do a lot of that for the NFL teams across the country. But be that done. I've done it. We know in this time, in this microscope, or even on our show here, You Be the Judge, we've had mothers talk about losing their sons. And there has been some crazy shootings with the mothers talking about their sons. I know you cannot correct the past. That's not what I'm asking you. But when you talk about transparency, what if you're held to a standard that you're not allowed to release things, even though you know in your heart something was wrong? How would you handle that?
Right. And that's in part the challenge. We have to work as a community. Part of the community engagement, Pete, is having all these partners, the state's attorney, on the same page. And when you communicate effectively and share with them that we need to release this because if we are servants of the community, they need to know what we're doing, how we're doing, and being transparent. What I want to add to Montgomery County, there's such thing called a gun camera. So as soon as you pull your gun out of the holster, it sees what you see at the end of your gun. So that's another piece of being transparent aside from the body camera. So the body camera you can turn off and on. The gun camera you can't. As soon as you take it out, it sees what you see. So by having that relationship and having that tool, the technology, I think that will go a longer way. Yes, there are things in place, laws that say you can release this at a certain date. But in my office, I have control of that. But the relationship that I will be building with the state's attorney, he will know where I stand. If we have a shooting, we need to release it to get the information out there as soon as possible. So there's no hidden agenda behind what we're doing.
I have a question. Actually, can there be a clarification or distinction? Because I think this is an important question, and I'm only going to be on this podcast for 15 minutes because then I have to quickly zoom to a transportation commission meeting. But there's got to be a clarity on what the sheriff's office does, because you are a piece of law enforcement versus what police do.
Correct.
And, because oftentimes I see the role of sheriff as kind of police officers or law enforcement for the courthouse, and law enforcement in terms of serving summonses or things of that nature, and law enforcement in a different way, but not so much in the community as normal police forces are. So if you could bring clarity to that, that would help us.
Yes, you are 100% right. The sheriff's office is the law enforcement arm of the court, but they have units who are in the community, such as domestic violence unit, such as the warrants unit, such as the child support section, where they go out and they have to knock on doors, the civil process. So yeah, we're not a call for service, but we are within the community and we're in a uniform. Most people don't make the distinction of sheriffs versus police. People in law enforcement that understand that we have different titles and different roles. Our roles, like as you mentioned, comes from the court. The civil processing is done through the courts, but we have the ability to do everything that a police officer does. We can pull over, make traffic stops. We can assist officers on the call if they're having, if they get a call on the radio, because we're usually on the same channel, to go to, if there's a robbery or something, you can go there to back them up. So you do the same job. It's just our directives come from somewhere else, which is the court, as you explained earlier. So call for service. If you get hit over the head in the street, you call 911, police will show up. If you go to court and the judge orders you to come back and you don't come back, he'll send the sheriff's office to go out and get you regarding a warrant. Or if you have a judgment or an attachment from the court and it needs to be served to you, the sheriff's office will go out and do that civil processing for you. Did that clear it up for you?
It did indeed. And another question I'd ask, and I know there are other people, and I'm going to try to be as quickly as possible. Oftentimes you see in law enforcement situations, personnel issues, where let's say an employee, a sheriff or deputy sheriff is involved in a race-based incident. And somehow there's always this uneven application of the law where the person of color gets terminated, but the others stay on the force. And as chair of the Legal Redress Committee for the Anne Arundel County NAACP, I see this all the time. I mean, people come into write complaints and come into our organization with these serious issues. So as a sheriff, what is it that you can do to change that outcome?
Well, it's a culture. And then again, I'm the boss. Usually there has never been in Montgomery County a person of color that was a sheriff since 1876, somewhere in that ballpark. So usually they tend to, I don't like to talk about race because it becomes very, very touchy.
But here's the thing, Robert, you have to talk about race. There is no way around it. And if you don't, it sounds like you whitewashing and tap-toe dancing.
Correct. No,
and don't do that. Because here's the thing. I understand Montgomery County is predominantly a white county. It is. But if you start talking truths, we will back you. But I'm going to talk the truth. I'm just saying when I'm talking about race, I don't want it to seem personal. Right.
But it's just a fact.
It's just a fact. Right.
It's just a fact.
Yeah, because Mayor Eric Adams just appointed his brother as the deputy. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, right.
Everybody's tripping.
No.
I'm like, what's wrong with that?
It always happens for them.
Right.
So what I was going to say is that everyone and the people in position of power tend to support people that look like them, talk like them, and think like them. In my administration, I'm going to have a selective eye, just like everyone else has in the past. And I will treat people fairly, but it's not as quick to pull a trigger on someone of color. Everyone will get treated fairly, but they're not going to be hit over the head just because they've done something wrong. There's a new law that just passed, not a law in Montgomery County. I think it's a new law that just passed where people can get a second chance or become reemployed by the county if they filed a suit or was fired by Montgomery County. So everyone deserves a second chance. People shouldn't be thrown out to wash, so to speak, right away. They need to be investigated, depending on what the the situation is. But yes, there's office things in the sheriff's office that's currently going on that's based on race, that is based on people of color being treated differently because they are people of color, and is currently happening right now. And my opponent, who is a minority, Asian American, but he's the chief and is going under his leadership, and that has to stop. That's another factor in me running, because I'm tired of us talking about what we should be doing, but we're never in a position of power to make these decisions. So I will be there to make sure that we get treated fairly.
There was a platform you both were on, and you didn't point that out about the things that has been happening under his watch. That
You're 100% accurate.
Watching. And I was just like, I was waiting for you to slam it. I was like, whoa, but you backed off. I'm curious why.
My team said the same exact thing. I don't know why I didn't. I should have. But moving forward, all those things will be coming to the table and to the forefront.
Okay. I coming from.
I would like to know what has been going on and what changes you would make if those things continue to go on in your administration.
Well, they won't happen in my administration because I'm rooting out the people who are at the root of it. If there are complaints coming down and you have more than one complaint, we have to get rid of you. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about that when it comes to race, treating people unfairly just because, or making up your own rules and regulations. No, there will be a standard, and the standard has to be followed.
Are there any complaints or anything that you could discuss with us?
Well, there are currently 10 EOC complaints going on currently within the sheriff's office. I don't know the exact details, but I know that they're happening. And what I've heard is that they're being investigated, but they're not being investigated because no one knows the outcome. Nobody knows what's going on, how far along are they in the process, and if anything will be happening to the culprits.
And so in your administration, you look into those complaints and see what has merit and what doesn't have merit and act accordingly?
100%. And in police work, when you look at something and it's happening over and over and over, that's called a clue. And the clue is there's something wrong and you have to address it and root it out from where it is right then and there.
And you have your own business and it's security. Do you think that's going to help you in terms of some of the tasks that you would have to do as sheriff?
Well, no, what I'm going to do with my security business is pass it off to my son. I will not be any dealings with it. I will give it to my son. But working in the security industry has allowed me to sit at tables with Fortune 500 presidents. It taught me how to work the room. It taught me how to talk to people regarding how to solve problems, how to communicate effectively, and to get to the root of the problem. As a business owner, you can't sit around and have employees who are not going to work, not do the job, and try to tell you how to do the job. And if you have people who are undermining you, that makes a difficult work environment. I'm going to have an open work environment, an open door. People can come to me. I will communicate effectively what our vision is going to be, what our tasks are, and where we want to go into the future.
I know nowadays it's a touchy kind of issue because we've had discussions about both sides of that issue. As a sheriff, you would be responsible for evicting some people. And nowadays it's a it's a more touchy issue than usual because of the pandemic and people not having their jobs and things of that sort. So on the one hand, I've heard from landlords who are like, oh my gosh, these people are still employed, yet they're not paying the rent because of the rent moratoriums, and we still have to pay the mortgage, so we don't have any money to pay the mortgage. And there's also the other side where, we don't have our jobs, or we're not making as much money as we used to, and we have a family, so we need a roof over our heads. But when you get that court order from the court, you have to act on it. How are you going to deal with I guess the emotional issues that come with evicting a family and seeing, the little kids' dolls and things like that put on the curb?
Yes, that is going to be emotionally, and that's going to be tough. And it's like you just said, if the court ordered us to do that, that's our job, part of our responsibility. We have to do that. But what I will say as the sheriff, we can provide programs, we can assist getting information out to the communities to say what programs are out there so that people can have assistance with their rent. But if the court ordered us to do that, we have to go do our job. We can't circumvent what the judge has ordered because we're not the judge. The judge has ordered us to do a job and we have to follow up on that task.
We know there's got to be what you call public policing, right? And I'm sick and tired of the term, as we've all heard from New York, snitches get stitches. It's been around forever. Mm-hmm. We have to break that paradigm that the community that we are so wanting to serve is hurting themselves by not turning someone over.
Correct. And that's in part the community police. Growing up in New York City, I grew up in the PAL, Police Athletic League. Yeah. They taught me how to golf, how to swim, how to play basketball, and they became mentors, but they had ears in the community.
Right.
People would come to them and say, this is who is doing what. But if you don't live in the county, you cannot know what's happening. But Jared, I want to venture to say 60 to 70% of the sheriff's office live outside of Montgomery County. So if you live outside of the county, all you're coming in here to do is to make your money and go home. I want to hire from within the community and people will take a liking, and then you can get more information because your people will come to you. You will have your car parked in front of your house. Hey, this people over here are doing this and is messing with the neighborhood. We need to talk, or you need to go talk to them. But if you don't live there, people are not going to trust you. They don't see you every day. They got to see you as a human, not just as a warrior coming out to do a harm towards them. So that's how I would address it, by getting my deputies being a little bit more friendly, having more events. And you said, well, the sheriff does not do a lot of public stuff, but the cadet program, going out talking to churches, and most people don't even know that the sheriff offices exist. I want to bring them out there. Let's talk to the people, have events, host events, so that they can see what we do.
And that would also be a great recruiting tool, because people seeing you out in the community and seeing the sheriff's office as something that's reachable and attainable would have more young people in the community saying, oh, I think I would like to have, I think I would like to follow the example that this sheriff or this deputy sheriff has been putting before me, rather than, oh, okay, well, I don't have any examples, so I might as well, do what I can to survive.
Right. And that cadet program is huge because it can be a pool of future candidates.
I know
they will understand. Yes.
I know Marylin won't say this, and I'll say it because she's such a dear friend. There's a good old boys network for her to become a judge. There is a systematic system that just doesn't want a person who has credentials, the wherewithal, the talent, the smarts to be what they can be in a position they don't want them to be in, right? We already know that for judges. We know that's been happening to Marylin Pierre, my good friend. Is that happening to you as we speak? Do you feel that there's a good old boys network that does not want you to be sheriff? Or do you feel like if they hire you, then we have Uncle Tom in the house?
No, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to be an Uncle Tom in the house. That's for one. And yes, there is a sort of entitlement within the sheriff's office. Over the last 30-something years, there was Sheriff Kite was the sheriff when I got into office. Darren Popkin became sheriff because Sheriff Kite anointed him. And Sheriff Popkin is anointing Max Wee without any competition, without anyone coming up to step up to fight him. So no, I'm going to throw some pea in the soup, mess it up. I'm going to come in there and challenge him and bring new ideas and bring new leadership and a vision, because the vision in the office is old. It is the old boy network.
It is.
And it's tired. The deputies are tired of that. They need some new energy, new people, new vision. I keep saying vision because vision is an important part of it.
Evangelist Minor would like to ask you a question.
Yes.
Evening, Mr. Bass.
Good
Can you
evening.
please speak a little bit louder, Evangelist Minor?
Mr. Bass, did you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay. My son was murdered October 23rd, 2014 in Prince George's County.
My
A deputy
condolences.
away. His civil rights motion was dismissed. I've been requesting the release of the 911 audio. Who should I reach out to in order to have the 911 audio released?
Well, the state's attorney and to the police department. Reach out to the state's attorney because they probably have access to it, and to the police. You said the sheriff or the police department for your aunt?
Sheriff Deputy?
Sheriff. So yeah, reach out to the state's attorney office to get access to the 911 tape.
They denied her.
Oh, they denied her?
Yep.
Ooh. Then you can the Public Information Act. You can
the
do
Freedom
that.
of Information Act, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's a very good suggestion.
Well, we suggested that before, but here's the kicker. When you have a sheriff office deny someone that evidence, something's wrong.
That's in part. There's no transparency. Everyone, I believe in police having some immunity. I believe in that. They need to be protected. Like everyone else have protections in their job. But if you don't follow the rules and regulations on how things should go, you make yourself vulnerable and open to everything that comes along with it. In my administration, I will have access because if there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to hide. If we've done something wrong and being a leader, you have to acknowledge we messed up. We have to correct it. And this is how we're going to move forward and correct it. Keeping it from people who are mourning and keeping the information close to their vest, there's a certain period, you have to do an investigation. You have to get all of the details together, but release it. Share the information, get it to them so that the other person don't feel like you're trying to hide something. And if they're wrong, we have to fess up to it. But then again, the bigger pictures, you have there are attorneys involved who control the purse strings. Mm-hmm. And when the purse strings get pulled, you can say, release it, release it, release it. But there's other factors that you don't really have control over, but you can still be supportive of the person who's grieving.
How many sheriffs are there in Montgomery County?
Currently,
Yep.
See now, I think there is a potential of 198 slots. There are currently about 140 something, and they continue to say they're fully staffed,
And they're not.
which is not true.
It's not true.
They're not true.
So that,
100%.
I was gonna follow you right into that hole. So why are they lying to us when they say they're fully staffed? Why are they telling us that lie?
I can't answer that because current deputies are asking the same question because they have people who they're being asked to do overtime because there's a shortage of deputies. To me, that's part of them doing things the old way, the same way, the way they've always done it. And that's how they operate. No, you need to ask to increase the budget. I was just told yesterday that they still are driving on old cars. They don't have newer. Let me rephrase that. There's only, I think, 2 SUVs within the whole sheriff's office. And when I say that is the SUV can assist deputies from if they live out of the county, drive to the line, pick them up in snowstorms, or help the office get guys or girls back in the county to assist. But they're outdated in what they're doing with their resources. The sheriff's office in Montgomery County in the last 20 or so years really have not asked to increase their budget. But have really not.
But there's money that has been in the sheriff's office. So where did that go?
That I do not know. Once I'm in the office, I will create an audit. I want to audit because I have that same question. Where's the money going? I do not know.
What we want to thank everyone for watching and listening to You Be the Judge every Wednesday at 6 p.m. You Be the Judge. I'm Dr. Paul Dyer. Our other co-host is Marylin, Pierre, and Judge Claudia Barber. Here's the thing, people. When you are involved look, see, witness, and be observant. So then we can ask these questions because we're not trying to point a finger at Mr. Bass or point a finger at Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, but there's questions that have not been answered, but we have been asking. And that hurts us as a community because the few people that needs the answers may not look like you. And that's the situation I think we're in. I think majority of Montgomery County says, I have nothing to do with that because it doesn't affect me. But a person who looks like me, a black male, it does affect me. And it does hinder me. And it does create. Yes, Holly, go ahead.
I'm not getting the sense. I mean, I think it was so nice that David Groveman explained a little bit about the difference between the sheriffs and the police work. But if the courts are closed largely during the pandemic, wouldn't the work of the sheriffs be diminished? Could that explain the not hiring the full staff? What I'm saying is I don't know enough to ask the right questions. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. No, there's still things that can be done, like the domestic violence unit. There's still warrants. There are protective orders and peace orders that are still being served. When the court were closed, yes, the prison transports weren't happening because they weren't bringing prisoners in. They had a rotating schedule, a week on, week off, and being available for service. But the pandemic is roughly new. This has been going on for the last 20 years. So it's not just because of the pandemic.
Okay, so what could you explain would be the interaction between the sheriff's office and the police department?
Well, we work in conjunction. For example, when they're having a shortage in a section or what do you call a district, the sheriffs can go and help out in that district, run calls for them. They can back them up. They work in conjunction because they go to the same academy. They go through the same training. They have the same, everything across the board. They train the same way. Or if there's a shortage in like Silver Spring, so there's a shortage of officers currently on MPD, Maryland Police, in the department. So sheriff's deputies can go and assist people in District 3 because they don't have enough officers to run calls every day. You can assist them because they are bound by the same regulatory system. And most people don't understand the sheriff is the highest ranking law enforcement officer within the county.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Grogan, do you want to add to that?
Bear with me.
Sorry, mid-bite, sorry.
No problem at all. I'm multitasking, having dinner, getting ready for another meeting. But yeah, Mr. Bass is right on point. And as I put in the chat, the sheriff, what he said lastly is the sheriff actually has broader authority. The sheriffs and every county in every district in every state, the sheriffs take on a different role. Some counties, the only law enforcement is the sheriff. And so it's up to the sheriff. The worker bees are deputy sheriffs. It's up to the elected sheriff to decide what role they want the sheriff's department to play in public safety. From my perspective, especially here in Maryland and certainly in Prince George's County, when you see the rise in crime like this, the sheriff's department has to be activated. The young lady asked a great question. If the courts are closed, what exactly is the sheriff's department doing? Well, they're still working because there's warrants, backlog, there's evictions. The work is already there, so they're not taking things daily. There's plenty of work to do, but during a time like this, from my perspective, I just think the sheriff's department needs to be a lot more visible from a security perspective.
So now that you're coming in, just like the sports team you play for, when there's a new sheriff in town, coined the phrase, right? Like Reggie Hammond, there's a new sheriff in town, right? There's a lot of players are just not going to really adhere to your program. How are you going to sniff that out? And I'm sure there's some pushback because of that.
Yeah. Did you want me to take that?
No, I'm just asking Mr. Bass.
Okay, yes. And that is true. Well, I have to find people in the organization that I can trust. And if I can't trust them, they will need to be moved in a different position. I will bring people in as much as I can. I will hire from within, but it's going to be selective people who I'm going to entrust. And then I'm going to go to the deputy. My plan is, soon as I win the election, I'm going to sit down and interview each and every one that works in the sheriff's office. I'm going to give them 20 minutes to explain to me what it is how they would like to see the sheriff's office, what would they want to see improved, and I will tell them what to expect from me. So I'm going to leave it an open door. I'm going to explain to them what my vision is and how we're going to move forward. And then we're going to take it from there. It's going to be a slow walk, but I'm going to tell them, in order for us to move forward, you have to trust me and I'm going to trust you. But this is the vision that I'm coming with, and we have to do it together.
If anyone has a question, let me know. Go ahead, Holly. Go ahead.
Okay. Is it Montgomery County's practice, like common in jurisdictions all over, that the chief of police is appointed, but the sheriff is elected? It seems to me that there's an inherent tension there, but I don't know enough to know if that's right or not.
Well, like, for example, in Florida, the sheriff is the police. The sheriff does everything. So depending on, as candidate Grogan said, each jurisdiction has its own makeup, so to speak. But here in Montgomery County, you have you have police department, you have Rockville City Police, you have Gaithersburg City Police, you have Tacoma Park City Police, all those units within that one county, which serves about 1.2 million people. But Montgomery County Police Department is the largest unit with about, I think, 15 to 1,700 deputies. All the other units are smaller.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I used to be, I'm still on the Criminal Justice Coordinating Commission, and I used to be the chair of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Commission. And I was really surprised when I got on the commission to see how many different types of police forces that there are just within Montgomery County.
Yes.
And it was really eye-opening. So there are, by my last count, I think it was over 20 different types of police force in Montgomery County. So you have the Gaithersburg Police, for instance, you have the Rockville Police, you have all these different cities in the county that have their own police force.
Right, and that's in part where everyone needs to work collectively and sit down. But if you look at most of the agencies who have police other than the county police, I think they all are of the Caucasian perspective, other than the Montgomery County Police.
Montgomery County, yes. And that's
else,
huge. Just like in the Howard County right now, Howard County has Sheriff Marcus Harris,
yes.
And he is a I don't know. Maybe he identifies as a black person.
Well, he is black. I saw him in person. Yes, he's a black man.
He sure.
You
Wait a
saw
minute.
him.
He sure doesn't say anything.
Way, doesn't mean that he identifies himself that way, because we've got people. Yeah, but I mean, stereotypically, I guess is what we would say. He looks like a stereotypically black person. He probably. So I think that it's wonderful that you and David are trying to become the sheriff in your different counties, because I do think that it is a really, really important position. I'm looking at Patricia, Miss Waither, who advocates for homeless people. And as an advocate for homeless people, I know that she is concerned about who is in law enforcement, because the people that she advocates for sometimes are the brunt of, some of the things that happen when things go wrong in law enforcement. And I don't want to speak for you, Patricia. I don't know if you have a question that you want to ask.
But before she asks that question, I think there is a problem with that. And part of my plan is the community piece of getting everyone involved. We need mental health experts to assist police officers and sheriff deputies while they're in play, because people have mental issues, and you're not trained. You might take a course on what it's like to come in contact with someone who's on meth, who's on drugs, and you might have someone who might be schizo, but you're not a doctor and professional. You're taught as a sheriff deputy, as a police officer, is to solve the problem right then and there. And that is get that person out of danger and harm. And that could be put them in jail. If you have a mental health expert who knows how to communicate effectively with people or bring them down or de-escalate that situation, that will, help alleviate some of the problem or the tension between the sheriff, police, and people who are homeless. You get to learn how to talk their language, learn how to bring them down off of whatever high or whatever mental space they might be in. So I think part of my plan is to get HHS involved. It's a community effort because we're not specialized in all of the things that are going on. We specialize in what we do, but we need help. And we get help from people who are professionals.
I know I had approached the sheriff department in Montgomery County, and we know there's a lot of civic organizations, fraternities, sororities, groups, networks all over that wants to help mentor kids, women and men, young kids, old people. But the police department and the sheriff department has a resistance against partnership up with a lot of our community civic organizations so we can mentor our community. Why do you think that is?
Because people who are power hungry don't want to share in the power. Because it's not about, for me, it's not about the glory of me being in the position of sheriff and I want to keep it all to myself. That's why I keep harping on the community. I want to solve what we're talking about. I want to have I can't solve it all, but have a piece so that we can move forward in getting people help when they need it. If they need to be locked up, obviously you lock them up for doing a crime, what have they done? But if there's a step in between here and there that they can be mentored and put them on a path to righteousness, then we need to do that. Because the prisons are being filled up over and over and over again, vastly with a majority of people of color. Why? Because the majority of people who are locking them up are not people of color. They don't have any sympathies about that. They don't care. They're not locking up their brothers or sisters. If I have a question about, growing up in a crack era. You arrested all the people who smoke crack, right? But now this meth that's ravaging the county, ravaging people, you're not locking up the people who are smoking meth. You're saying get them help, send them to a mental hospital or get them in a hospital, get them treatment. You're not putting them in jails. You're not breaking up families. So if you want to take that stance, we need to take that stance. Move forward in getting them help. And using partnerships with all the organizations that you mentioned earlier.
I love what you're saying. I know you have. I know just by public record or the written word in newspapers, they don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
I just trying to figure out that it's like if you watch them how they write the article, it's very one-sided, and I'm sure you noticed that, and I'm sure it must hurt a little bit. Because they're not telling the full story.
Right. You know what? It doesn't hurt, but I think about it like this. They've always tried to keep people who are good down. If I have a story to tell, you know what? I'm going to tell it. I'm going to tell it to people who are willing to listen, and people who want to back me and support me will see I'm true to who I am.
Right.
I'm not a politician. I'm going to tell you what it is, right, how it is, and where I'm moving. And if you don't want to back me, that's fine. But I would like your support.
Right.
If you don't want to do that, then you know what? My grandfather taught me this a long time ago. He said, I'd much rather know that someone is a racist out front than not them be behind my back.
Right.
So if you don't like me, good, I'll deal with you. Respect you, how you doing? But you got to send the respect back my way as well.
Oh, I said something earlier and I have to apologize. I did not use the proper term for when I used homeless. I should have used an unhoused person. So I'm sorry about that. Patricia, do you have a question?
I think she said no.
No, I was.
I'm like, so piggyback on what Dr. Dyer was asking Mr. Bass, is so how would you merge those? Because I've been in the county a long time, so I see how they navigate. I see who's who. I know who's boys. Even our black brothers, I know who's who, because we've done a lot of, like, even in the recovery community. So, and I know that it is a power and political county, all hands down. So how would you, if you did, how would you merge, or how would you begin this partnership with the persons that he has mentioned? And it is very important, because we used to do that when we were doing peer work in the county. We were the persons that they would call to bring, the peers would come out with a police officer if they were in a mental health crisis or someone was having a meltdown. We would be the ones that they would call, and we would come there. So how would you bring those relationships back? Because it is going to be people that's going to push that back even now. So how would you actually, and how would you choose which persons to partner with that would have a good outcome?
We all would have to sit at the table and hash it out. Sit at the table, let's devise a plan and move forward on it. Because what we're doing, or what a lot of people do, is talk about it. No, let's bring the power brokers in the room, sit at the table. All right, I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to bring people in the room to help me with those answers. And if those people are part of the community, they should be part of the community, and we'll get to the bottom of it. Right now, I don't specifically have a plan, but what I will do is bring everyone to the table. This is what our problem is. This is how I think we can solve it. Now let's work through all of the rigmarole and get it done. Let's sit down, talk about it. Let's talk about pros and cons. And it's not political. It's about getting the job done.
And thank you for answering that. There's been a question in the chat for a long time, and I meant to ask it, but somebody wants to know, what is your position on deadly on the use of deadly force? What is your position on the use of deadly force?
Deadly force is a judgment question. I can't answer that. Deadly force, you're trained as a law enforcement officer to neutralize the threat. And neutralizing the threat, if you have a gun and you're pointing at me, I don't want my family to question what happened. Why didn't I protect it? I have to neutralize the threat if you're pointing a gun at me. It's just straightforward. If you're pointing a gun at an officer and he shoots you, you're not shooting to harm him. You're not shooting to shoot his hand and shoot the gun out of his hand. You're shooting to neutralize that threat. And if that threat is deadly force, it's deadly force. And people tend to look at it and say, well, you could have done something differently. No, because I answered this question the other day to a good friend of mine. I was like, what is your objective every day when you come home when you leave work? Is to get home to your family. A police officer's object every day is to get home to his or her family. We have the same objective. But if you're threatening my objective to get home to my family, I have to neutralize that when it comes to deadly force, using a firearm to stop that threat.
He's right. When it comes to deadly force, or the presumption of deadly force, depends on the person who is being presented. I've been a grandmaster of martial arts. I've been teaching all around the world. I'm a tactical madman. I teach special forces. I've done all that. So a threat to me isn't the same as a threat to someone else. Learning how to handle yourself does not disseminate to all people who are in uniform or any people who are in the car. So that is what we call civilians question. How can one person handle it this way and another person handle it that way? It has nothing to do with training or the lack of. It has a lot to do with the person's perception. And that's something you can never judge or put on judgment.
Right. Like, for example, we just had the shooting in Silver Spring, and they released the tape talking about what happened. The gentleman jumped out of the car, pointed a gun, and started shooting. Right. Most people will want you to say, oh, well, wait to shoot. This is not the military.
Right.
No, It's not, wait to shoot, see if he shoots and hits me.
Right.
No, I have to neutralize that threat right away. Because if he neutralizes me, who else is there to say that he can harm someone else in the community? And that's in part the law enforcement piece that most people tend to say, you could have done something differently. Not really. But you answered the question correctly. It's individually based when it comes to that.
We as a community have been traumatized, has been in suffrage over the police umbrella, right? It's been historically been segregated to the trauma that only certain minority people feel. We have to get past this as a community. It is not always up to the police force or the people in uniform to make us feel better. We have to understand that we are traumatized by what has happened, what did happen, and what could happen. And we push that out to the people in uniform, and that's been unfair. I know that, we know that, good citizens know that, but we're still traumatized, and you're still getting the blunt of the work. Mr. Bass, I know you don't have much time. We'll welcome you to come back on. And Dave Grogan, soon to be sheriff of PG County, will make sure you come back on and have your show to ask and answer the same questions, because it's very important that we see you as a man, as a human being, and hopefully you could see us. Did you understand the question in there?
Yes. That's I think it's a very easy question to answer, in that the community needs to be trained and the officer needs to be trained, because the community thinks, I can't say all people, but people in the community they educated on some parts of the law, but not educated on all parts of the law. So police officers and sheriff deputies have a certain right of authority when they encounter you on a traffic stop. They tell you why they stopped you, the reason why they stopped you, and ask you for your ID. Because they gave you a legal reason why they asked you, you have to legally provide your ID. So, but people say, well, no, I don't have to do this. And it becomes contention, it becomes a power struggle. And then you call other officers, and usually it's not the first officer you encounter who you have an issue with. It's the second or third officer who's coming down with a fire in his behind and want to say, okay, come on, let's take him out the car. But you don't need to get there if both the community listens and says, okay, this officer approached me in the right manner. He told me why he stopped me. He asked me for my identification, provided the identification. And most people they think that the police officer know who they are. When the police officer pulls you over, he doesn't know who the people are, the occupants are in the car. He just knows who is the owner of the car. So it's based on the license plate. So if you committed a crime and you provide your driver's license, you're not the owner of the car, he won't know nonetheless, because you are not the owner of the car, and that's who he's pulling over based on a traffic stop. So I think the community needs to be engaged. Need to be retrained in how to think and how to interact. And I think we need to train more officers on how to de-escalate situations and treating people with more respect, so that we can have a meeting of the minds and not always be contentious situation and having it being a power struggle on who's right or who's wrong. We need laws, and we just need some people to follow them and some people to enforce them.
You have a website that people need to send money to. What is it?
BassForSheriff.com.
Okay. And Mr. Dave Grogan, I know you have a website too. And again, we'll have you back on for your own show. But what's your website for people to send money?
DaveGrogan.com. DaveGrogan.com.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
We need the right people in the right positions to be better. Are you that person, Mr. Bass?
I am.
Okay.
And I hope I've answered all of your questions. And I'm not going to be for everyone,
right,
but I'm going to be true to who I am and what I believe. And I think majority of people will appreciate that I'm coming from a place where I want to do good, want to be good, and be transparent, because I lived it. I'm living it as a black man every day. And I know that the trials and tribulation that comes along with that.
If the other person gets in, and I don't even want to put his name into the ethos, we're going to be heading down a place that's not going to be safe for a lot of us. And
I agree with that, because the current person, he's just a robot. He's not making any stance towards anything. He's not bringing any vision towards. He's just going to do what they've been doing,
mm-hmm.
and that's not what's needed. And people who are currently there, the morale is so low that I just heard yesterday that they can't wait to leave. It's a horrible place to work because of micromanagement. People are not being treated fairly, and it's just disgusting. But it will take a while to change. But once again, I would bring energy, vision, truth, transparency, and getting people to talk, getting the community engaged, getting young people engaged, and bringing all these partners together so that we can help solutions for people who do not have homes, or who are I don't know the correct term, the unhomeless, or what is the correct?
Unhoused, experiencing homelessness.
Right, the unhoused individuals that are out there, and get them help. Create programs and bring all these resources together, because this county has money. But that's another piece that we haven't addressed, in that the county council has the purse strings, and you have to position yourself and talk with them and get them to release some of the purse strings. They're doing a lot, but we have to, work in partnership.
Anything you want to say, Marylin, before we take off?
I think it was an excellent discussion. I learned a lot, and I know a lot more now about what the sheriff's office did, and I look forward to hearing Mr. Bass some more. Good luck with your campaign, Mr. Bass, and I look forward to hearing David Gogan when it's his turn to speak with us. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We look forward to having you join us again next Wednesday, 6 p.m.
Thank you so much. And Marylin, I spoke to Ronald Wright.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
He is an excellent person to speak with.
Right. So we talked about you. So
I'm going to put you on notice. We want you back. We want your transparency. We want your energy. We want it here on the show and in Montgomery County.
Yes, anytime I'm available. You let me know the time. Give me 48 hours notice. I'm here. I'm open to it. Let me know. Any questions? I mean, as hard as the questions can be, I will answer them honestly. And the chips will fall where they lie. I'm a New Yorker.
You're from Brooklyn. You're not really from
Absolutely.
New York.
Well,
there you go.
I like that you say to yourself, hey, I'm not going to win everybody's vote, but that's okay, because I know that there are substantial amounts of votes there where I don't have to tell everybody what they think they want to hear. Right. I'm just going to tell them what I know that I could do and what I know what I stand for. And I think that's very important, because some people will go to this group and tell them what they want to hear, go to this other group and tell them what they want to hear, even though these groups have opposite positions on things. So
yes, and I'm gonna say the same thing over and over and over again, because it's true. I'm not trying to remember what my story is. It's going to be the same. And back to Doctor, you were right. I should have hammered him on some of those issues. My team said you should have hammered him. You know what? It's a learning process. I learned from it.
I got to tell you, I got off that call. I went upstairs to my wife, and I was pissed. You're lucky I didn't have your phone number. You're lucky. I called Marylin the next day, didn't I? I'm like, what? I was blowing this phone up. I was so pissed. She's like, let's get him on the show.
Right. And what it is I'm learning, and I'm open to criticism. Right. And that's fine. I will learn and grow from it. I'm a sponge.
Roger that. You guys
That's what we're here for, to educate and empower. So thank you very much for educating us, and we hope that some of you have been empowered as well. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you so much, and good luck.
Good luck. And I'll be talking to you.
Good evening.
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk soon.
Yes, sir.